5 more books that I think people should read. It's literally an impossible question because there's like 8 million books that I would have to include, but the books that have meant a lot to me that I think have shaped my mind and that I think people would find interesting. Going back into the ancient world, I would do the book by Tacitus, however you pronounce it. um, the Annals of Roman History. I forget which one it's called, but you'll find it. He goes through the lives of the Roman emperors, beginning in the Caesar era and going all the way through to like Nero and Caligula. And he lived through this period in the end of it. And it's absolutely riveting how decadent, how disgusting, how horrific some of the things that were going on in the Roman Empire. And it's a fascinating read, and particularly in light of the United States in the 21st century, I highly, highly recommend this. Another writer that had a big, big impact on me in my early years that I always go back to is a French writer that people don't know much about called Denis Diderot. He was one of the people with Voltaire who wrote the Encyclopedia, and he wrote these dialogues. His most famous one is called Rameau's Nephew. And what I like about Diderot is he had a really, really interesting mind. He thought in kind of complicated ways, and he takes you on this journey, and he kind of plays these mind games on you. And that book had a really big impact. I read it in my early 20s, and I really, really loved it when I was in university. So I recommend that. And then, of course, Dangerous Liaisons, which had a huge impact on the art of seduction, is one of the greatest novels ever written. It is so wonderful. It's a series of letters that are written about probably one of the greatest seducers that ever lived. And Laclos, the writer of it, is a fascinating figure. And it's a long book, but it is so much fun, and I highly recommend it. The other one that I love a lot is a contemporary writer. He died a few years ago. His name is Roberto Calasso, and he wrote a book that is absolutely one of my favorites called The Ruin of Kosh. I used it in the 48 Laws of Power, several anecdotes. If you read the book, you'll recognize them. And it's a very strange, broken up book that takes you on this weird journey where it's the narration, it doesn't quite go in a logical order. It's sort of like almost like a dream. And I've actually done this thing where I read the book backwards, and it was as interesting as it was reading the book forward. And I highly recommend it. It's a complicated book, but it's incredibly entertaining. Another book, it's another novel that was also from the Art of Seduction. I'm very much into Japanese culture and Japanese literature, and of course Zen Buddhism. But this book called The Tale of Genji, which was written in about the 13th century by a woman, it's absolutely fascinating, and it takes you into this whole other world. You know what? I read books to get me out of Los Angeles, California, 2026, and all. I like to go on a journey, as if I'm being taken to another planet, to another world, almost like going inside the consciousness of an animal or a space alien. And when I read a book like The Tales of Genji, where the culture is so different from what's going on now, and it's so interesting and rich, it's an endlessly fascinating book, and I highly, highly recommend it. The Tale of Genji. It figured prominently in the Art of Seduction. Those are 5 books, but man, I could go on forever. There's like millions of them. In my newsletter, every week we have 3 books, and you can see 3 of my recommendations of them every week, and so you'll find hundreds of them there. But those are 5 books I particularly recommend.